Chapter 1. The Illusion of Concrete. The air inside the sales office is conditioned to exactly 21 degrees Celsius. Outside, the Dubai night is a suffocating 42 degrees. The humidity clings to the thick pane of glass, struggling against the engineered perfection of the interior. But inside this room in Business Bay, it feels like London. It feels like New York. That is the first illusion. It is 11:30 p.m. in the middle of 2026. In Tokyo, the markets are quiet. In London, traders are asleep. The rest of the financial world is powering down. But inside this room, the lights are blindingly bright. There is no night here. There is only the momentum of capital. Sitting at a heavy marble table is a 34-year-old British expat. We will call him Julian. 4 years ago, Julian was working a mid-level corporate job in Manchester. He spent his mornings staring out at gray skies, calculating how many agonizing decades it would take to pay off a modest suburban mortgage. He felt invisible. Today, he is wearing a $30,000 watch. He is a property consultant. And he is sweating. He is sweating because the man sitting across from him just agreed to wire $3 million for an apartment that does not exist. Julian slides a sleek, leather-bound contract across the cold marble table. The silence stretches. The buyer doesn't read the fine print. He doesn't even look at the terms. He just signs. Julian feels a sudden violent rush of dopamine. In exactly 48 hours, a 5% commission will hit his tax-free bank account. He realizes, with a strange mixture of pride and horror, that he will make more money in this single heartbeat than his father made in 5 years of backbreaking manual labor. But beneath the euphoria, there is a quiet, gnawing anxiety in Julian's stomach. A psychological dissonance he pushes down every time he closes his eyes. He knows the math doesn't make sense. The buyer didn't ask about the school districts. He didn't ask about the community, the neighborhood, or the walkability. He didn't even ask about the floor plan, because the buyer has absolutely no intention of ever living there. Julian shakes the man's hand, smiles a perfectly practiced smile, and walks him to the glass doors. The deal is done. Now, let's change the scene. It is 6 a.m. the next morning. The sun is rising over a dusty, fenced-off rectangle of dirt on the edge of the city. There is no building here. There is no foundation. There is only a massive billboard featuring a digitally rendered image of a glittering tower, promising a lifestyle of unimaginable luxury. This is what Julian just sold. This is the off-plan market. It is the invisible engine that powers the modern Dubai economy. If you want to understand how a barren stretch of sand transformed into a trillion-dollar metropolis in less than 30 years, you have to understand what is happening on this empty patch of dirt. People think the Dubai real estate market is about housing. It isn't. It is a derivatives market. It is a massive, unregulated casino, where the chips are made of theoretical concrete. In 2026, off-plan sales make up nearly 65% of all residential transactions in the city. Billions of dollars flowing into the primary market for homes that haven't been built. Here is how the game works. The buyer puts down a deposit. A year later, before the first brick is even laid in the sand, the property value supposedly goes up 20%. The buyer sells the contract to someone else. That person waits 6 months and sells it to someone else. The same theoretical apartment changes hands 4 times. It generates fees, massive commissions, and explosive economic data at every single step. It creates a perfect, frictionless loop of wealth generation. But it requires one fundamental, unshakable belief. The music must never stop. The next buyer must always be waiting. If the capital flow slows down, if the global sentiment shifts, the loop breaks. The buyers are left holding a worthless piece of paper for a tower that will never touch the sky. Julian knows this. He knows he isn't selling real estate. He is selling momentum. And momentum is the most fragile currency on earth. Chapter 2. The Architect of Debt. The silence in the room is deafening. It is late November, 2009. We are standing inside a high-rise office in the Dubai International Financial Center. A senior risk manager is staring out the floor-to-ceiling window. Down below, the highway is usually gridlocked with luxury cars. Today, it is eerily empty. On his desk rests a single sheet of paper. It is a termination notice for his entire department. A few miles away, at the international airport, thousands of expatriates are frantically abandoning their leased sports cars in the parking lot. They are leaving the keys in the ignition. They are fleeing the country before their debt catches up to them, escaping a legal system that criminalizes bounced checks. The mirage has shattered. The government's primary investment vehicle, Dubai World, has just announced it needs a standstill on $59 billion of debt. The tower of theoretical concrete has completely collapsed. The risk manager packs his family photos into a cardboard box. He doesn't feel angry, he feels a profound, humiliating betrayal. For years, the financial models told him the growth was structural. The relentless marketing told him the city was invincible. He chose to believe the marketing. We always believe what is rewarding. When human beings are surrounded by immense wealth, our brains deliberately bypass critical thinking. We assume that because the buildings are tall, the foundation must be deep. But the foundation wasn't deep. It was built on the most dangerous financial instrument ever created: short-term, cyclical debt. Fast forward to January 4th, 2010. A new scene unfolds. A grand, glittering ceremony is taking place at the base of the tallest building in human history. For years, it has been heavily promoted to the world as the Burj Dubai. It was meant to be the ultimate symbol of the Emirates' triumph. But as the fireworks explode, and the global media watches in awe, a sudden, shocking announcement is broadcast. The name has been changed. It is now the Burj Khalifa, named after the ruler of Abu Dhabi. It wasn't a tribute. It was a receipt. Abu Dhabi, the neighboring emirate with actual, vast oil reserves, had to quietly inject $20 billion to bail Dubai out of total financial ruin. They bought the city's pride. You might think a near-death experience like this would fundamentally change a city's psychology. You might think it would dismantle the machinery of speculative risk. It didn't. Instead of changing the system, the architects of the market realized they just needed a better class of buyer. They needed capital that didn't rely on fragile mortgages. They needed people who could buy the mirage with cash. The uncomfortable truth about the 2009 crash is that it didn't teach the system caution. It taught the system resilience in the face of illusion. It proved that if you build something big enough, glamorous enough, and interconnected enough, the world will not allow it to fail. Chapter 3. The blood in the foundation. It is 4 a.m. The air is thick with the smell of diesel fuel and unwashed bodies. We are in Sonapur. The name ironically translates to land of gold in Hindi, but there is absolutely no gold here. There are only endless rows of brutal, concrete labor camps, hidden deliberately far away from the glittering coast. A young man from Bangladesh, let's call him Tariq, is stepping onto a battered yellow bus. He hasn't slept properly in 4 years. His hands are calloused, permanently stained with the caustic dust of cement. Tariq looks out the smeared window of the bus as it begins the long, dark drive toward the city center. He feels a crushing, suffocating weight in his chest. It is a psychological isolation so deep it feels like physical pain. He hasn't seen his daughter since she was an infant. Why is Tariq here? Why does he stay? Because of a single decision he made in a tiny, unregulated office in Dhaka. He signed a contract he couldn't fully read, borrowing thousands of dollars from a local recruiter just for the privilege of a visa. When he arrived in the land of gold, his passport was taken. His wages were slashed to a fraction of what was promised. He cannot leave. He cannot quit. If he speaks up, he faces immediate deportation and a debt that will destroy his family for generations. This is the kafala system. The authorities will eagerly tell you it has been reformed. They will point to newly drafted labor laws and official hotlines. But laws on paper do not erase the terrifying reality of power. According to the Global Slavery Index, an estimated 132,000 individuals live in modern slavery in the United Arab Emirates. They are the invisible gears in the trillion-dollar machine. Now watch the scene change. It is 8 a.m. The yellow bus has arrived at the base of a luxury hotel in downtown Dubai. Tariq steps out and puts on a pristine, perfectly pressed uniform. He walks into a soaring lobby made of imported Italian marble. He takes out a soft polishing cloth and begins to silently wipe away a tiny smudge on the brass railing. A wealthy European tourist walks right past him, laughing on her phone, not even registering Tariq's existence. This is the psychological brilliance of the system. It is designed to make the human cost entirely invisible. The workers are bussed in long before dawn. They are bussed out long after sunset. They are ghosts. You cannot build a utopia for the ultra-wealthy while paying fair wages and providing union benefits. The math simply does not work. The entire economic miracle of the city, the cheap services, the rapid construction, the impossibly pristine streets, relies absolutely on an underclass systematically stripped of its autonomy. If Tariq and the millions like him were given real rights, real wages, and real freedom, the cost of living would skyrocket. The profit margins would vanish overnight. The mirage would instantly evaporate. The luxury of the elite is not just separated from the suffering of the poor. It is entirely dependent on it. Chapter 1-5. The Global Laundromat. The door to the private conference room clicks shut. It is a heavy, soundproofed click. We are inside a top-tier corporate service provider, in the heart of the financial district. Sitting at the head of the polished oak table is a compliance officer. She is impeccably dressed, calmly sipping sparkling water from a crystal glass. Across from her is a representative for a high-net-worth individual. The representative has a deliberately vague title and represents a shell company registered in a remote tax haven. The compliance officer is looking at a massive request, a transfer of 50 million dirhams for the purchase of an ultra-luxury villa on the Palm Jumeirah. She runs a routine background check. The results blink on her screen. The ultimate beneficial owner is a Russian oligarch currently facing severe international sanctions. She pauses. She looks up at the representative. The representative smiles back, completely unbothered, knowing exactly how this game is played. The compliance officer feels a brief, sharp flicker of moral hesitation, but it is instantly overridden by the incentive structure of her environment. She signs the approval. Why? Because in this city, willful blindness is not a crime. It is a highly optimized business model. She knows that if she says no, the representative will simply stand up, walk down the hall to another firm, and they will say yes. The transaction will happen anyway. She might as well take the fee. When you strip away the dazzling marketing, you arrive at a very dark, very powerful realization about the city's true economy. Dubai is not just a tourist destination. It is the world's most glamorous laundromat. According to massive investigative reports like Dubai Unlocked, billions of dollars of illicit wealth flow directly through this real estate market. Corrupt politicians, brutal cartel leaders, sanctioned billionaires and shadow economy operators pour their money into luxury concrete. Why here? Because the system offers something no Western city can: absolute geopolitical neutrality and a profound lack of curiosity about where your money comes from. Now imagine the villa that was just purchased. It sits gracefully on the front of an artificial island. It has a private beach. It has a stunning infinity pool overlooking the skyline. But if you walk up to the heavy glass window and look inside, the furniture is covered in white sheets. There is a thin, undisturbed layer of dust on the marble floors. No one is home. No one is ever home. The lights are strictly on timers. The landscaping is meticulously maintained by an invisible army of workers. It is a ghost town built exclusively for billionaires. These properties are not homes. They are massive safety deposit boxes made of glass and steel. They are a physical manifestation of the world's dark capital, safely locked away from probing governments and tax authorities. The city's skyline is not just a monument to local engineering. It is a monument to global corruption. Chapter 5. The Algorithms City. A bright ring light reflects perfectly in the eyes of a 24-year-old woman. She is standing on the narrow balcony of a rented apartment, positioning her phone so the iconic Burj Al Arab frames the background perfectly. She adjusts her designer sunglasses, which are counterfeit, and speaks energetically into her camera. "Guys, you have to move here." The energy is just unmatched. She hits post. Within seconds, the algorithm takes over, pushing the video to hundreds of thousands of glowing screens across Europe and America. What the camera doesn't show is the reality waiting just outside the frame. It doesn't show the 3 roommates she shares a cramped, windowless space with in an older, forgotten neighborhood. It doesn't show the maxed-out credit card she aggressively used to rent the Lamborghini she posed with yesterday. And it doesn't show the profound, crushing loneliness she feels the exact moment the camera turns off. She is an active participant in the most sophisticated, state-sponsored psychological operation in the modern world: the influencer economy. Dubai understood something about human psychology long before anyone else. In the digital age, reality simply doesn't matter. Perception is reality. If you can mathematically convince the world that everyone in your city is rich, beautiful, and successful, people will flock there to become rich, beautiful, and successful. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, engineered specifically for the human ego. The government actively fuels this illusion through the Golden Visa program. They hand out long-term residency to celebrities, athletes, and major social media stars. They aren't just giving them a passport. They are hiring them as unpaid ambassadors for the mirage. But the trap goes much deeper, because the city actively suppresses negative news. You will rarely read about corporate bankruptcies. You will almost never read about the suicides of ruined businessmen. The environment is painstakingly curated to project relentless, aggressive optimism. When you live inside this bubble, the psychological pressure becomes immense. You look around, and everyone seems to be succeeding. Everyone seems to be closing massive deals. If you are failing, the city makes you believe it is entirely your fault. So you fake it. You lease a better car. You buy a luxury watch on credit. You project the image of wealth to attract actual wealth. You become exactly like the city itself, highly leveraged, immaculately presented, and terrified of the moment the truth is revealed. The people watching the influencer's video from their rainy apartments in London or their gray cubicles in Chicago don't see the desperation. They just feel the FOMO, the paralyzing fear of missing out. They pack their bags. They buy a one-way ticket. They bring their life savings. The city consumes them, extracts their capital, and demands they smile for the camera. Chapter 6. The Ecological Deficit. The noise inside the facility is a violent, mechanical roar. It is a massive desalination plant, situated on the edge of the Arabian Gulf. An engineer wearing heavy ear protection and a yellow hard hat is staring at a digital gauge. The numbers flashing across the screen are staggering. Millions of gallons of seawater are being violently sucked into the plant, boiled, aggressively filtered, and pushed through immense pipes. This water will travel miles through the scorching desert just to fill infinity pools. It will spray constantly over perfectly manicured golf courses. It will keep the thousands of imported palm trees from bursting into flames in the summer heat. The engineer wipes the stinging sweat from his forehead. He knows a terrifying physical truth that the glossy marketing brochures never mention. The city is at war with geography, and it is a war it is slowly losing. If the power to this single plant were to fail, if the massive continuous supply of fossil fuels required to run these machines were suddenly cut off, the entire city would run out of drinking water in a matter of days. It would become uninhabitable. But the real tragedy is not what the city consumes. It is what it leaves behind. Let's move out into the open water. A marine biologist is diving a few miles off the coast, near the artificial archipelago known as the World Islands. These were supposed to be the ultimate, exclusive playground for the ultra-rich. Hundreds of islands shaped meticulously, like a map of the globe. But as the diver swims slowly over the seabed, all he sees is death. The massive dredging required to build these islands completely buried the natural coral reefs under millions of tons of heavy sand. And the desalination plant, the very lungs keeping the city alive. For every single gallon of fresh water it miraculously produces, it dumps a gallon of superheated, highly toxic brine straight back into the Gulf. The salinity levels in the water are steadily rising to lethal concentrations. The ocean is dying to keep the desert green. The engineer inside the plant and the diver in the water both understand the same uncomfortable reality. This lifestyle is an ecological debt. It is a violent extraction of resources from the future to forcefully fund the vanity of the present. Sand on the artificial islands is slowly, inevitably washing away. Nature is constantly trying to reclaim what was stolen. It takes an army of dredgers, working tirelessly around the clock, just to keep the islands from sinking back into the sea. It is a breathtaking monument to the ultimate human arrogance, the blind belief that with enough capital we can conquer the basic laws of nature. But nature does not accept credit. Eventually the bill comes due. Chapter 7. The Inevitable Arithmetic. It is mid-2026. We are inside a sterile, glass-walled boardroom of a major real estate intelligence firm. A senior risk analyst is standing tensely at the head of the long table. He is projecting a single, terrifying chart onto the large screen. The wealthy men and women sitting around the table are completely silent. The chart tracks the supply pipeline. 182,000 new residential units are scheduled to hit the market. The analyst clicks to the next slide. It shows the transaction volume. The total value of sales is soaring, but the number of actual transactions is dropping. The prices are rising, but the apartments are rapidly shrinking. Shrinkflation has officially hit the luxury market. People are paying $1 million for tiny concrete boxes they can barely turn around in. The analyst takes a deep, heavy breath. He begins to explain the brutal arithmetic of a late-cycle market. The city has successfully attracted the world's wealth, but wealth does not equal population. The people buying these hundreds of thousands of new units are not moving into them. They are distant investors from Russia, China, and Europe, desperately looking for a yield. But a yield requires a renter, and the middle class, the actual human beings who serve the coffee, manage the glowing offices, and keep the city running, can no longer afford the rent. The affordability threshold has been aggressively breached. The analyst looks into the eyes of his colleagues. He tells them what no one wants to hear. The risk in Dubai is not that demand evaporates overnight. The true risk is that supply arrives faster than reality can absorb it. When 182,000 units are handed over, investors will fiercely demand their promised rental returns. When they can't find tenants, they will try to sell. And when everyone tries to sell at the exact same time, the fragile illusion of scarcity breaks. And when the illusion breaks in a market built purely on momentum, panic is instantaneous. The executives in the boardroom nod slowly. They understand the data. They see the cliff approaching. But what is the decision? The CEO stands up, slowly buttons his tailored suit jacket, and says exactly what he is financially incentivized to say. Keep selling. They will not sound the alarm. They will not slow down production. Because in a system this heavily leveraged, slowing down is exactly what causes the crash. Like a shark that must keep swimming to breathe, the city must keep building to survive. The analyst quietly packs up his laptop. He knows it is no longer a question of if, it is only a question of when. Chapter 8, The Reflection in the Glass. Drive 30 minutes outside the city center, past the immaculate highways, past the heavily guarded gated communities with their bright, artificial lakes. You will reach the edge, the exact point where the smooth asphalt stops and the ancient, unforgiving desert begins. Stand there in the total silence. The hot wind blows a thin layer of orange sand across the empty road. If you turn around and look back at the towering skyline, the buildings look like a digital render superimposed on the horizon. They shimmer in the thick heat haze. Beautiful, terrifying, completely unnatural. When you understand the deeply hidden layers of this city, the crushing debt, the indentured labor, the dark capital, the ecological violence, and the psychological manipulation, you begin to feel a lingering, heavy discomfort. But the most unsettling realization is not that this city is a mirage. The truly haunting realization is what this city says about us. Dubai didn't trick the global elite. It didn't force millions of tourists to visit. It didn't physically compel the world's wealth to hide within its vaults. It simply held up a mirror to human desire. It gave us exactly what we asked for. We wanted a world without taxes, without history, without moral consequence. We wanted a place where status could be instantly bought, where the unpleasant realities of manual labor were kept securely out of sight, and where the only metric of human value was the size of your bank account. Dubai is not an anomaly. It is the logical conclusion of hypercapitalism. It is the physical manifestation of our own greed. The lights will come on tonight across the marina. The complex algorithms will seamlessly push millions of perfectly curated images to glowing screens around the world. The illusion will hold for another day. But stand here, in the vast silence of the desert, and you can feel it. The quiet, inevitable patience of the sand, waiting for the music to stop.